Well, you asked for it, and now you're gonna get it. What is up, fellow nerds, and welcome back to the Dapper Snapper Gaming channel, and welcome to the Pokemon Waifu tier list. Now, this is a video that has been on the table for a little while now. It's a video that I'm not gonna say I was putting off necessarily, but it is one that I put an incentive behind, I guess. And it was, could we reach 100 subscribers by last Saturday? And you know what? You guys showed up. So I wanted to start this video by saying thank you to all of you who subscribed within this past week. Just within this past little bit, we have grown so much. Just in the last month, we've grown by, I believe, like a third of our subscribership. And it's absolutely amazing how you all have been coming over to the channel, subscribing, commenting, liking, everything. You guys have been fantastic. And so I just wanted to say thank you. And this was a big request. So here it is. All right, so here is the tier list. And before we get started in the categorizing, I wanted to go ahead and give you my rules that I set for this tier list. The first one is, this is a pre-made tier list, okay? This is one that I found online, and so there were a lot of characters on here that I didn't think were relevant to the list, and there were a lot of duplicates on the list. And so all of those have ended up down here. Now you're also going to notice a couple of other significant things. You're going to notice the rivals or the playable characters. I'm not including any of the playable characters on the tier list, just because I'm basing this off of the games and not the anime. So, mainly because I didn't watch the anime. So I'm basing this on the games, and so in the games, they don't really have a super distinct personality for me to base it on. It's exactly the same as the male. So I didn't really think that it was fair for me to really put them on the tier list based on, you know, not having a personality. So that's one thing. There are also a lot of duplicates here that I didn't do, grunts, and there are also, let's see, there's just like random trainer classes, all of that stuff. Anything that's just a random character or a duplicate, I didn't include. So I didn't think that it would be worth spending 2 or 3 hours on this video when I'm just classifying the same thing twice. And some of them are literally the exact same picture. So I didn't want to waste your time with that. And I am sorry about the playable characters, but I just felt like it was the most fair that way. All right, last thing I wanted to talk about before we get into it is going to be my criteria. So what makes a character in the dang tier, right? What makes them in the I tier? What makes them okay? What makes them nah, and why do I remember you? What are the criteria that I'm looking for here, right? The first one that I'm looking for is, how memorable is this character, right? How much do I, when I get done playing the game, could I even call off their name? How much could I remember what they even look like? How important were they to the story? Anything like that. And one last thing, I know I'm keeping you waiting here, but I wanted to go ahead and make sure that you know that there are some notable omissions from this list, but we are going to throw them in at the very end, okay? We are going to include a few characters from the anime because I know about them enough, and that is going to be Nurse Joy, Officer Jenny, and Ash's mom. And for some reason, this tier list only includes a few characters from Gen 8, but not all of them. And so we are also going to include Nessa, Alistair, Bee, Opal, Marnie, and Melanie, all of those gym leaders. I just wanted to make sure that you knew that. We're going to include those at the very end, so don't worry, I didn't forget about them. They're gonna be at the very end. All right, so I believe that is all we need to go over. So first up is, of course, gonna be Misty. Now, Misty is a very popular character in the Pokemon universe, and I might have an unpopular opinion, but I don't think she's all that she's cracked up to be, and here's my reasons why, right? She makes a lot of weird mistakes.
Venonat's radar eyes and Meryl's super sensitive hearing make them a really great team.
At least they're not bug types.
For it, let's
ground Pokemon would be stronger against an electric type.
And her team really isn't crazy, right? So if you look at teams that she's had in the past, so we find that we have level 18 Psyduck and level 19 Starmie, which actually is weaker than what she used to be at level 21 Starmie. So she's gotten weaker over the years. Now her rematch team isn't too bad, but like, come on. And even in these tournaments, like her teams are okay, but I mean, I don't know. I wouldn't consider her to be everything that everyone says she is. But I also think that she, like, you know, she has a little bit of charm. She's a cool character. I get you. So for the people, she's going to end up in the okay tier. Sorry about all of you Misty fans out there. She's ending up in the okay tier. All right, next up, that's going to be Erica. Now, Erica is the grass-type gym leader in Generation 1, and she brings some interesting things to the table, right? As far as a memorable character, I do think that she's memorable enough. Being Generation 1, it's hard to not be memorable, I would say. But her team is not ridiculous, right? So her first battle isn't too bad at 33, 33, and 34 with these three Pokemon respectively. And if you look, she actually is a little bit higher level in these games than she was in her originals, which is pretty interesting because typically when you look at Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee, they got weaker. So it's interesting that she's a little bit higher level. And then her rematch one, which is where I look for a little bit more strength. It's not a terrible team. I mean, Tangela is good. I like Tangela competitively. Now we don't have, do we have a sun? We don't have any Sunsetter, do we? Yeah, no, there's no way for the team to set up the sun, even though there's Solar Beam. And I mean, this normally would get Chlorophyll if we were playing in a normal game, Solar Beam as well. Yeah, like the team just kind of works against itself. So yeah, not really that strong of a team, unfortunately. So she's gonna also end up in the okay tier. Being a Gen 1 gym leader, she is memorable, but she really doesn't have any kind of impact on the game after her gym battle. So she's gonna also end up in the okay tier. All right, next up on the list is going to be Sabrina. Now, Sabrina is the psychic type gym leader in the Generation 1 games, and she is a little bit more of a complex character. Now, not so much in the original games of Red and Blue where she first appears, but she seems to get a little bit more complex as she goes. Now, she does have a whip for some reason in her original games, which is kind of scary. And then she can also levitate in Black and White too. The interesting one, though, is she's an actress in the PokeStar Studios, which I think adds to her character a lot more than a lot of the other characters have. It gives her a little bit more depth. So she's memorable in two very different forms. That helps with her being memorable. Now, and also her team really isn't that bad, right? Alakazam, a very strong Pokemon, and Venonat, for some reason in these games, just in the playthrough of the games, is pretty strong. It is pretty difficult to deal with if you don't have a fire type or a psychic type of your own. However, I wanted to look at a couple of other teams that she has had and show you that she can pack some power. Now, this team right here isn't too bad. I like the Gallade with the Alakazam. If you're going to do a mono psychic team, this isn't awful. But the team I wanted to look at right here is her Stadium 2 team, which has a Scizor, Typhlosion, Hitmonlee, and Alakazam. Sandslash, that right there, that's a Rapid Spinner. Now, we're not looking at the moves necessarily. We're looking at like what they would be on a singles team, right? Scizor, very strong. This is a very strong Pokemon. We've got the Slowking with a Quick Claw, no less. That's hilarious. Slowking is a very bulky Pokemon, and it gets a lot of different coverage. Very cool. Scarf Eruption on Typhlosion, very nice. Normal Gem Fake Out with Hitmonlee. You can set up rocks and spin with Sandslash, and then you've got Magic Guard Alakazam. This team is straight flames. Like, this is a cool team, and I would use a team pretty much like this in competitive just to try to beat OU. So just because of this team alone, she's going in the dang tier. Like, she has multiple reasons to be memorable, and she's got a strong team. She meets my criteria. She's going in the dang tier. All right, next is Whitney, and I believe all of you know exactly where Whitney is gonna go. All of us remember being absolutely annihilated by Miltank. Enough said. And next up is going to be Jeanine. Now, Jeanine is a ninja, for crying out loud, and so that automatically makes her cool. She is the daughter of Koga, who was the former gym leader, now an Elite Four member once we get to Gen 2, and she's got a pretty cool squad. Now, I do think that this is probably her best team here, and we've got Venomoth, Weezing, Nidoqueen, Crobat, Roserade, and Tentacruel. Now, why is this a cool team? We've got Roserade for Toxic Spikes, right? We've got Crobat for Defog. We've got Weezing as a physical wall. Now, I would have the Nidoqueen would be probably Sheer Force Life Orb, but it gets really good coverage. It's a decent speed tier. Tentacruel is another really good wall. So I think that this is a really bulky team, and I like it. You could run like a Scarf Crobat that's more offensive. And then Venomoth, of course, gets Quiver Dance to set up as well. So for this team, this isn't a terrible team for Mono Poison, and Poison is a decent offensive typing. Obviously, you have the immunity on Steel types, but that's what Nidoqueen is for. So this isn't a terrible team. I think this is pretty cool, and she's a pretty memorable character. I'm not going to say she's the most memorable, but that's going to put her in the I tier. And next up is going to be Jasmine. Now, Jasmine was our very first Steel-type gym leader, which is pretty cool. It was a new typing to Gen 2, and this was her team that I think is the strongest. Now, Metagross obviously did have a Mega Evolution, and so did Lucario, but alas, they have lost them. That doesn't mean that these are not good Pokemon still. Lucario is still a great Swords Dance or Nasty Plot user. It gets Extreme Speed, it gets Bullet Punch, it gets Vacuum Wave, all for priority. It gets a lot of really good coverage, and it's pretty strong actually. Metagross, same deal. We've got Bullet Punch for priority. We've got Earthquake, we've got Meteor Mash, we've got Zen Headbutt. It's a very strong Pokemon still, even without the Mega Evolution. Skarmory is going to be terrifying this generation when it comes in the DLC because it's going to have Body Press. This thing has a ridiculous defense stat, and this team is going to be pretty dang strong. Fortress, of course, is a great hazard setter and rapid spinner, so that's pretty important. Magnezone used to have Hidden Power Fire, but it doesn't anymore, but it gets Body Press now in order to deal with Steel types. Can't deal with Ferrothorn as well as it used to, just because Ferrothorn also has Body Press, but it can still deal with other steels, which is pretty interesting. And then Steelix. Steelix could be a curse set. It can set up rocks. It has Dragon Dance, for crying out loud. Like, it can do a lot of different things as well, and even more Body Press shenanigans. So I think this team isn't too bad. I think that it's definitely got its weaknesses, especially with these two losing their Mega Evolutions, but at the same time, Skarmory gaining Body Press is pretty nice. It's pretty important. So, and I don't think that she's necessarily like super important to the story. Now, her typing being the first Steel type typing is pretty nice, but besides that, I don't think she's a super memorable character. She's going to go in the tier, and I really think that that's pretty solid for her. And next up is Claire. Now, Claire rocks a Dragon-type team, and anytime you're dealing with a Dragon-type team, you know that the team is going to be strong, and that is no exception with Claire. So if we take a look at Claire's team, I believe this would probably be her strongest team. Now, the Dredagon isn't that great. I mean, it would just be there to set up rocks and then kind of die, I feel like. Maybe glare a couple of things. But besides that, Dredagon's pretty useless. The rest of them, however, are pretty decent, I would say. Garchomp, from what I hear, is supposed to be getting Dragon Dance this generation, which is going to be ridiculous. Let's see. We've got Salamence, which we all know is busted, especially with its Mega Evolution. Altaria's Mega Evolution was pretty good. Unfortunately, its regular version is not so good, so probably not the best. Dragonite, great Mon. Kingdra, fantastic Mon. I love Kingdra. Now, I don't think that necessarily this is going to be like an insane team. In VGC, this might not be awful, I guess, but in singles, which is what we're talking about, I think it's a mediocre team. Like, we've got some decent mons on here, but as far as like them being able to differentiate themselves, even with it being a just a one type team, right? We've got 3 dragon flying teams, 3 dragon flying types rather. So I mean, the diversity of the team is really not fantastic. The only switch into a water move is Kingdra. So yeah, you know, I would like to see something like maybe a Kyurem, which I know is obviously a legendary, but you know, one can dream, right? But for dragons, I think it's a decent squad. I don't really think that she was an incredibly crazy character. Gen 2 is my least played generation, so that's possibly part of it as well. But for what a dragon type team can be, and considering how late this was in the life cycle, I'm going to end up putting this in the tier as well. Next is Roxanne, and Roxanne is, while a memorable gym leader, I would say, doesn't have the strongest of teams, which is unfortunate, right? Being the first gym leader in the 3rd generation, I think she's pretty memorable. The first time you see Nosepass, you're like, what the heck is that? I mean, do you remember Nosepass's old sprite? And just how freaky that looks? Yeah, this is weird. But anyway, I do think that this is probably her strongest team. One of these two right here, I'm not really sure which one I think is better. They're both pretty mediocre, I would say. None of these Pokemon are OU. None of them are really even close outside of Aerodactyl. And so her team is just really lackluster, even if you evolve the Nosepass. I'm not really going to go super into it just because her team's pretty weak. So unfortunately, she's also going to end up in the tier. She's memorable, but her team kind of sucks. And so, and she's not bad enough to where I can say nah, but I'm going to say that's about it. Now, Flannery, however, is a different story. Now, she is obviously pretty memorable being the fire type gym leader. And I remember Torkoal giving me some issues as well in her gym. Now, looking at her teams, however, in a modern sense, Torkoal is actually a big problem this generation. It has Rapid Spin, it has Body Press, it sets up the sun by switching in, which is going to help the rest of her fire type team. Plus, she has a Blaziken, that's an Uber, in case you were wondering. Whether it is Mega or not, that is an Uber. Chandelure is a fantastic Scarfer, and so is Magmortar. They both can also set up. They have decent, I mean, Magmortar has fantastic coverage, actually. Houndoom isn't so great, and Camerupt isn't either, but the rest of the Mons honestly could carry the team. And so I really think this team is quite strong, actually, assuming the Blaziken is speed boost, and yeah, assuming that these are optimized, this is a pretty cool team, and it's pretty strong, especially with the Torkoal and how much better Torkoal is nowadays. So Flannery's honestly gonna end up in the I tier. I feel like she's just real close to Dang, but I don't think she gave any of us nearly as many problems as what some of these other characters did. And so I can't really put her all the way up there, but she's definitely very, very nice. All right, so Wynonna is the flying type gym leader of this generation, and now I don't remember this being a thing, but Wynonna is way stronger than I remember. Now, she really didn't give a ton of problems in the main game. She is a tough opponent. I'm not going to say she isn't, because Altaria can be a problem if it gets too many Dragon Dances set up, but for the most part, Wynonna is a pushover in the games. However, if you look in Black and White 2, she becomes a little bit more of an issue. So she has Pelipper, which sets up Rain. Setting up Rain obviously is going to help with Hurricane, a flying type move. But the problem is the only thing that really wants to use it is Pelipper, and it works against the Tropius, which would want to run Harvest. So, okay, not that great. Skarmory is fantastic, of course. Swellow, I think, is a very nice threat, actually, with Guts and Flame Orb. That thing can be very strong. Honchkrow, also not too bad. The problem comes when we take Tropius, and let's say that we're allowed to put together a conglomerate of the best Mons that she has ever had. She has had a Rayquaza in the past. So you put Rayquaza right where that Tropius is, because Tropius sucks. And all of the sudden, she gets turned right back around and becomes an insane threat. Automatic dang tier. That's all there is to it. You carry a Rayquaza, automatic dang tier. And next is Liza. Now Liza, of course, is the counterpart to Tate, and they double battle you in Pokemon Emerald and of course all of Gen 3. So they work on double battles. However, you have been able to battle Liza by herself before, and that was in the Psychic type tournament. Now her team, I'm gonna say, is pretty dang strong for what it is, and here's why, right? We've got 2 Trick Room setters in Claydol and Bronzong, and Claydol is actually very good this generation. Gardevoir is also pretty darn good, and Gothitelle, assuming that we can use the trapping ability, is pretty strong as well. Gothitelle's very specially bulky. Bronzong sets rocks and Trick Room. Claydol sets Trick Room and spins. Xatu has Magic Bounce to deter any kind of non-attacking moves. This team has some decent synergy, I would say. They cover each other's backs pretty well. So, you know, you've got a Sweeper Gardevoir, maybe with a Choice Scarf, and then the rest of them basically run off of a Trick Room strategy. So you've got that double-edged sword there. I don't hate this team. Now, Lunatone is pretty bad, and I would replace it with something else. But besides that, I mean, it's a pretty decent team, actually, and I like it. And obviously this is a very memorable battle that when you face a double battle in a gym challenge, that's pretty important. So yeah, she's gonna end up in the I tier. She does require her other half in order to be that memorable. So that's kind of a thing, but I still think that she's a memorable character, and I think she should end up in the I tier. Next up is going to be Gardenia. We're moving on to Generation 4 gym leaders here, and she's interesting, right? Now, I don't remember her being ridiculously memorable. I think her gym was okay. The little, like, grass maze, right? The little hedge maze was okay, I think, but besides that, she really didn't affect the game all that much, and so she wasn't ridiculously memorable. And looking at her team here, it's tough, right? She has a lot of chlorophyll users, which is pretty good. You could put that on Leafeon as well. And then you set up the sun, and then you've got Flower Gift on Cherim. You've got Quiver Dance for the Bellossom, but Bellossom still isn't that great. Roserade can set Toxic Spikes. Tangrowth is fantastic, I'll say that. Tangrowth is amazing. I think Breloom is a very good mon if you have it set up correctly. This mon can be good. It's a Spore user, which is very, very strong. And, you could swap out Tropius for something else, but as far as what this is, it's got several sweepers on it. You can set rocks with Torterra, actually. And, the ground typing is pretty nice. The fighting typing is nice. It's got a decent type synergy as far as, being an all grass type team. So I like it. I think it's pretty neat. I think it's a neat team. I like it. It's not too bad. We're going to go in the okay tier. I think she's all right. Next is going to be Maylene, and I think Maylene is a pretty interesting character. Now, I don't know about you, but I got absolutely bodied by Lucario when I first played Gen 4, and it took me forever to figure out how to beat that thing. So, yeah, the Force Palm plus the Bone Rush and the Drain Punch just absolutely wrecked my day in Gen 4, but we figured it out. We got through it. It's okay. Now, I think her team is not too bad, right? Infernape can do literally anything. It can set up rocks. It could be physically offensive. It could be specially offensive. It's got a lot of different things it can do. We've got Lucario, which we've already talked about, Gallade, which we discussed in our recent competitive decks. If you missed that, that'll be up in the iCard above. We've got Medicham here, which with its Mega is incredibly powerful with that Pure Power ability. We've got Breloom, as we talked about, with the Spore. We've got Hitmontop with Intimidate and Rapid Spin, which is fantastic. So this team isn't too bad. Her mons that she has brought in the past are not awful. I like it. She's pretty dang good, and I remember getting absolutely destroyed by Lucario. That's a memory that I will not soon forget. You're going in the I tier. Fantina, being next. Now, she is a very memorable character for me. Any character that dresses the way that she does in this huge fancy dress, which of course she was over contests and that sort of thing, but any character that dresses like this, you're gonna remember them, right? Then she's also the ghost type gym leader, which is very cool. I love the ghost typing. It's very strong this generation, so that goes ahead and helps her out. She has Spiritomb, which was super busted at the time. It's nowhere near as strong as it used to be, but it's still a good mon. Jellicent, very underrated. We use it on the channel quite a bit because I think it's very strong. Gengar, very strong just as is. We've got Drifblim, which is an unburdened user, which is pretty cool. We've got Rotom, which we could, we can only use this form to keep it as a ghost, but it's still a very good mon, I think. However, again, where she gets crazy, she has used Giratina in the past. Therefore, we have to consider it as one of her Pokemon. That puts her into an insane tier of the dang tier. She dresses very fancy. It's very memorable. I think it's pretty cool. Her hair is really also very memorable, I would say. Memorable is a word that I'm going to use for it. And then she's used Giratina. That's a pretty easy dang tier. All right, next is Candace. Now, I remember Candace's gym a lot more than I remember Candace necessarily. I still think she's a cool designed character, but her gym is what makes her memorable. How many of you struggled with that stupid snowball puzzle? I mean, come on. That puzzle was ridiculous. I struggled for a long time on trying to figure out how to navigate that gym while getting all the snowballs to go where they needed to go and how to get to the gym. Yeah, it was a whole thing. So yeah, that part already, that's a plus for her. She has a memorable gym. Her team, however, is not so good. Weavile, good. Mamoswine, pretty good. We've got Frostlass to set spikes. We've got Mamoswine that has rocks or could be really offensive. Weavile is, of course, a sweeper. Glaceon could be a sweeper. Glalie is decent because of Moody, but Moody did get nerfed this generation, so at the same time, it's not as good. And Abomasnow, of course, making sure that Blizzard hits every time. The team is kind of rough, I would say, but also ice typing is really bad defensively. And so it's a very weak typing if you get something fast that's super effective against you out. So it's really easy to actually just straight up lose with a mono ice team. So for that reason, we're going to put her in the okay tier. The gym is the only thing holding her in this tier because it's just too good. I think the gym is just too good, but her team's pretty bad. All right, Leonora is going to be next. Now, Leonora is not your typical gym leader, I would say. She is a little bit older, but she's a lot more knowledgeable. She helps you with fossils and that sort of thing. She runs the museum, and you have to go around the library and that sort of thing, which is a pretty cool gym idea, I would say. I definitely think the gyms were stepped up in this generation, which was pretty cool. But then she gets kicked out in Black and White 2, and so you kind of forget about her because she's no longer a gym leader. Now, she did help with the sages, which is pretty cool. You do see her helping with the sages at the very end of the game, which is good, but that kind of hurts her that she got kicked out in Black and White 2. And it also, she only shows up in the Black and White 2 tournament. So this is the only teams that she's had. So we can combine them a little bit just to help her out because she needs it. So we can take the Cinccino and the Braviary from this team and put that over the Watchog and the Audino. And that's going to give an okay team here. So Clefable, of course, being one of the most busted Pokemon in all of competitive right now. Cinccino is a great Scarf user or King's Rock user. Just being able to use its other ability, which Technician is a terrible ability for this, being able to use Skill Link in order to hit all 5 times. This thing can be a threat. Braviary is a great Scarf user, so I appreciate that. Sawsbuck, not so great. Dunsparce needs a big buff. Kangaskhan needs its Mega. Like its original Mega. If we have Kangaskhan back in original Mega form, this team is actually like really strong, I would say. Cinccino, Braviary, Clefable, Sawsbuck, Mega Kangaskhan, Dunsparce. That's not too bad. You've got 2 sacks in Dunsparce and Sawsbuck, and then the rest of them are actually pretty decent Pokemon. So yeah, it's an okay team. And where she got kicked out of being a gym leader, that kind of sucks too. So, yeah, I don't know. Not a great team. Not super memorable for me, I guess. She's going to be our first nah. All right, Elisa is going to be next. And Elisa I think she's a very memorable character just because of her design, right? Her design is what makes her more memorable than her team. You know, she does bring the Zebstrika, which is her signature Pokemon, which you can kind of remember her by. But as far as the rest of the Pokemon that she has ever brought, it's kind of tough because she's just really not all that strong. Luxray is interesting and Electros are both pretty interesting to me. I like Electros just because it is such a versatile Pokemon. It's got an insane move pool. It has no weaknesses as long as it's not facing anything with the Mold Breaker ability, but with the prominence of Excadrill in the metagame right now and just the weakness of Electric to Ground, and with Ground being such a prominent type in the metagame, that just really, really hurts this team. And it's rather slow outside of Emolga, so it's going to lose. Basically, something brings out an Excadrill and the whole team goes down. So that's kind of unfortunate. So, I mean, just her design is going to put her in the okay tier, but that's pretty much all that's keeping her there. Yeah, her team's just not good. Now, Scylla was also a pretty memorable character, I would say, from Gen 5, and I think it's just like her outfit is pretty cool. The little like windmill on her hair is pretty neat as well. I think it makes her pretty memorable, I would say. And of course the Swanna being her signature Pokemon, being all sassy standing like that, I think it's pretty funny, even though it's pretty bad. Swanna's a really bad Pokemon, I would say. We would swap that out for her Skarmory up here. Jumpluff carries Sleep Powder, which is pretty cool. Drifblim gets Unburdened, so you could run Unburdened with, say, a berry or something like that. Mandibuzz is super bulky, a great defogger. And of course, you're going to need defog on a team like this that is all flying types, just to get rid of those rocks. Archeops is rough just because of its ability. Its ability is really, really bad. But we have Braviary, and Braviary is pretty cool as well. So this team is decent for an all-flying team. I'm not going to say it's bad necessarily, but it's not like the most fantastic flying type team I've ever seen. But I like her design, and so we'll put her in the I tier. With the Skarmory buff, anything that has Skarmory on it right now is going to end up in a decent tier. All right, next is Iris, and Iris has served as both a gym leader and an Elite Four member, which makes her pretty strong, I would say. I like her spunky attitude. She's got a lot of energy, which is really good. It makes her a really memorable character. And she's got two different forms, right, as far as her gym leader form and her champion form. So that also helps you to remember her. So I definitely remember her. I think she's a really cool character. I really enjoyed her in the games. And she's got a strong team. Hydreigon, Salamence, we've got Aggron, Archeops, Lapras, Haxorus. We've got Druddigon that we could switch in, but I mean, that would only be there to set up rocks, so I don't think that would be all that great. But Haxorus, strong. Salamence and Hydreigon, all strong sweepers with really decent coverage and setup moves. We've got Aggron that could be just a wall that sets up rocks, which could be interesting. We've got Archeops that you could just send in to die, and Lapras is probably not all that great without the G-Max. But, you know, you could go for Sing Shenanigans, which is what it has on here, which is stupid. But, yeah, I don't think that this is a terrible team at all. I think she's got some pretty interesting mons here that could work, right? Aggron is obviously not all that great, and neither is Archeops, and Lapras is questionable. But these three dragons right here are very, very strong. So she's memorable. She's got a good team. I'm going to put her in the dang tier. I like her. She's good. We'll put her up there. Next up is Roxy. Now, Roxy is a gym leader that was specific to Black and White 2, and I'm just gonna say that she wasn't super memorable for me. I honestly, like, when I first saw her, I was like, is she a gym leader or is she like a trainer class, just like a regular trainer class? So I had to look her up, and maybe that's bad of me, but I don't really remember her all that well, so that's kind of a low point for me. And looking at her teams, you know, she's got an Amoonguss, which is fantastic. Amoonguss is amazing. We've got Crobat. Garbodor's not good. Toxicroak, not really good. Scolipede can be good, but overall this team just looks pretty underwhelming outside of Amoonguss. So unfortunately, with me not really remembering her and the team being pretty bad, she's gonna go in the nah tier. Sorry. Next is Viola, and unfortunately, once we get to this generation, I feel like they started to get a little bit more forgettable, I would say. These characters start to get a little bit more forgettable, especially this gym leader right here. Viola, you remember that she carries a camera, and that's about it. And she has a Vivillon, and that's about it. Yeah, I remember because she's a gym leader, and that's about it. Now, Karina, on the other hand, is a lot more memorable. She is the one who teaches you about Mega Evolution through the use of her Mega Lucario. And so that goes ahead and makes her quite strong. Mega Lucario was an Uber when that was allowed. And so, yeah, that makes her quite strong, right? She also has a Hawlucha, which is very strong right now. We could assume that she can evolve this into a Machamp, which is pretty cool. And then she also has a Minechow. And Minechow is a pretty cool Scarf user as well. So this team doesn't look awful. It's got some synergy, right? We've got the Minechow is very fast. It's frail, but it's fast, and it hits really hard. Hawlucha, of course, with Unburden can be very scary, and Lucario has been on several teams so far. Lucario can be strong too, and obviously we would have to fill this out with 2 other Pokemon, but given what we've seen, I think she's pretty cool. We remember because of the roller skates. We remember because of the Mega Evolution, which helps her to be strong. We're going to put her in the okay tier, which is probably going to be about as high as any of the gym leaders go this generation. Next is Valerie, and the one thing that I have a problem with is Valerie being the very first Fairy-type gym leader, and her being just as forgettable as she was, right? She's the first user of Sylveon, which is cool. She's the first Fairy-type gym leader. You would think that they would make her more memorable, but she's just not. And this is the best her team gets. We've got a possible Mega Mawile, we've got Mr. Mime, and we've got Sylveon, which, I mean, obviously she would have 3 more, but like, Mega Mawile is very strong, and Sylveon can be strong as well. Like, those are 2 pretty strong mons, and Fairy typing is pretty decent, but we're looking at her character, and her character just as a character, to me, she's not very memorable, so she's going to end up in the nah tier for me. Olympia's taking up our next slot, and again, just not super memorable. I like the cloak, and I like the hairstyle, but the team, it's not great. Meowstic being your sweeper. Meowstic female is very bad. Meowstic female is awful, in fact. Siglith and Slowking, okay. Meowstic, very bad. Don't really need to talk about this one all that much. Nah. All right, so let's go ahead and now get into Elite Four members. Now, let's go ahead and see. Our first one will be Lorelei. Now, Lorelei is a pretty cool character with her signature Lapras from Generation 1. And she also, you know, shows you that the power plant exists. And I think she's a cool character. I definitely remember her. And she's got an interesting team here. Now, she has carried Articuno in the past, which is cool. And Articuno with heavy-duty boots nowadays is going to make it way better than it used to be. I'm not going to say it's going to be better, but it's going to be pretty decent, especially with Galar Articuno. That could be interesting, especially if the freeze chance ends up being crazy. We talked all about that in a recent video. If you haven't seen that video, make sure to check that out up in the iCard above. Great video for you. And let's see, we've got Starmie with the improved Rapid Spin. Executor helps to cover some of the weaknesses. Wigglytuff is garbage, which we would switch out for probably Slowbro or Jinx. Dugong we could leave, or we could have a Mamoswine, which could be interesting as well. She's got some cool things to choose from, I would say, in her ice typing. She uses a lot of water types as well, which I don't hate. That gives her a little bit of diversity, which is always good with these teams. So, you know, memorable, decent team. We'll put her in the okay tier. Next would be Agatha, and I think you already know where Agatha is going to end up on this tier list, but I'll go ahead and humor you while we're here. Look at this team. Look at these teams. Gengar, busted. Crobat, very good. Alakazam, busted. Arbok, Gyarados, strong. Venusaur, strong. Don't even need to do anything with it. Dang tier, hands down. Agatha, you deserve it. Let's go. And next up will be Karen. Now, Karen is an interesting character, right? So she is a dark type user in the Elite Four of Generation 2, and she's got a pretty decent team as far as, you know, synergy and different types that she uses. So she's got a Victory Bell, she's got a Magmar, which we could go ahead and evolve to a Magmortar. We've got a Vileplume. We've got a Slowbro, which gives her Fire, Water, Grass. We've got another Gengar that she's used before. Umbreon being super, super bulky. Weavile, Honchkrow. I mean, she's got some pretty flames mons to choose from here. I think she could put together a pretty decent team, actually, if I were to put one together. I think that this could actually work. So yeah, I like this. I think Karen's got a good squad. I think she's pretty memorable. I'm not gonna say she's like the most memorable, but I think she's got a good design. I think that she's pretty memorable overall. Good team. We'll put her in the I tier. On to Gen 3 now, and we've got Phoebe. Now, Phoebe is the Ghost type Elite Four member in Generation 3, and I think she is quite fantastic. First of all, her design being the Hawaiian theme is pretty cool, and her being a Ghost type leader is also insane. I mean, Mega Bayonet is crazy. We've got Sableye with Prankster, which could burn things. It's pretty oppressive, I would say. We've got Dusk Noir, which isn't great, but we could downgrade that to a Dusclops, and that becomes an incredible wall. Chandelure is a crazy strong sweeper. Drifblim, of course, has the Unburden, which is very good. And then Mismagius is okay, I would say. But overall, decent team, and I think she's a very memorable character overall. I think anyone who's played Gen 3 would remember her. So just because of that, I think we're going to end up putting her in the I tier. If her team was a little bit stronger, like if she had a Gengar or any of those other like really strong ghosts, I think we might put her there. But I don't think she's quite strong enough to put her up in that tier. So we're going to put her in the I tier just because of just how much fans love her. All right, Glacia is going to be our next pick here. And Glacia's got a pretty cool team, right? Obviously, she's an ice type user, but she's got some pretty cool things to choose from. How many of you remember getting absolutely stomped by this Walrein because it's so bulky? I know I do. It's a problem. It's a big problem. And how many of you got hit with a sheer cold and just died? Yeah, I've done that too. It's not great. Anyway, she's got a pretty cool team here, and I like it for a couple of reasons, right? Beartic now gets Slush Rush, which would double its speed in the hail, and there are 2 hail setters. We've also got Frostlass to set up the toxic, or not toxic spikes, but just regular spikes. And then, yeah, it's got Destiny Bond, which is pretty cool. We've got Walrein, which is just a great wall. And then Glalie, of course, for the Moody shenanigans, which are pretty fantastic. So this team doesn't suck. And I think she's memorable. Again, we're going with the dang tier for her. I think she's a dang. Let's go with it. All right, we got Bertha coming up next, and Bertha is a pretty memorable character, I would say. She's the only girl in the Elite Four for Diamond and Pearl, and she's got a Rhyperior, which is pretty interesting. It's a good solid rock user. It could carry a weakness policy. She's got Gliscor, which is also a very good mon. Hippowdon, that helps to set up the sand to patch up that special defense. Golem can set up rocks and then explode, which is interesting. We've got Quagsire, which Quagsire helps because it gets the water absorb ability. So that would help to take in those water type moves. And yeah, I think this is an interesting team here. We would carry these 5 and then the Quagsire. So it's not too bad, I would say. I like this team. It's pretty cool. I like her. We're gonna go with okay. I think she's a solid pick in the okay tier. You could argue for I tier. I could see it. Let me know down in the comments below whether you think she's okay or I. But I think she's okay tier. Could be higher, but I think we're gonna stick right here. All right, now is a big fan favorite, which is Cynthia. This is one that I'm sure a lot of you have been waiting for. Cynthia is a very, very popular character. And of course, her design is fantastic. Everybody likes her design, let's be real. And let's look at her teams that she has carried throughout the years. She has carried several different teams throughout all of her time battling. And let's look at a conglomerate of like her best mons, right? She always carries that Garchomp, which is ridiculously strong. Glaceon we would probably get rid of for something like the Rose Raid on this team. I like the Rose Raid instead of the Glaceon rather than them being on the same team, and keeping the Milotic. I like that a lot. She doesn't have a grass type, does she? Or not a... She doesn't have a fire type. No, she doesn't ever carry a fire type. But Garchomp could carry a fire type move just to cover that slot. Togekiss is, of course, incredible this generation. And Milotic is not too bad at all. I think Lucario is good. It's a good answer to Togekiss and to Clefables that are running around. And once you get rid of Clefable, Garchomp is going to be an incredibly strong threat, especially once it's released in the new generation. I mean, hands and Braviary as well in the back. Braviary could be a really strong Scarf user on the team. Yeah, this team's pretty good. She's, of course, a huge fan favorite. I think we all knew this was going to happen, but she's going to be in the dang tier. Chantal is next, and I don't know if y'all remember her Elite Four room, but this is pretty cool. The library with the books that move around and that sort of thing. I thought this was a really cool design. It really helped to make her a little bit more memorable. She's holding the book. So that's pretty cool. I thought that was really nice. And then we've got her teams, right? Her teams that she has had in the past are actually pretty flames, I would say. So we've got Frostlass as a hazard setter. We've got Chandelure as a sweeper. We've got Gengar as a sweeper. We've got Cofagrigus as an annoying wall. It can burn things. Mega Bayonet, if they ever bring Bayonet or Megas back. Jellicent, another very annoying wall. This works. This team actually works, and I like it. So, I mean, honestly, while some people may not remember, I definitely remember, and her team is flames. She's going in the dang tier, man. She has to. She just has to. Next is Caitlyn, and Caitlyn... Honestly, I don't think she was as memorable as a lot of the others on this list. I do remember that she was just tired all the time, which wasn't great. I'm like, why are you in the Elite Four? And, you know, you're such a skilled battler if you're just so tired all the time, if you don't actually want to be here. That's interesting. I also didn't remember that she was in Platinum as well. I completely forgot about that. I don't know, just didn't seem that important. As far as her team goes, though, I mean, she's got a pretty decent team, I would say. You know, you've got Bronzong, Metagross, Gothitelle, all great Pokemon. We've got Gallade, which is pretty cool. Alakazam, very, very strong. So, I mean, as far as, like, of the Psychic types she could have, she's got a good team, solid core. You can do several things with it, I would say. But, unfortunately, I just don't think that her as a character is that great. Just if you're just so tired that you don't even want to battle, why are you even here? I'm not gonna quite put her in the nah tier. I'll put her in and I feel like that's actually just given a lot more than what I should. But I feel like it's fair. I feel like that's about as good as it's gonna get. Malva would be next, and I mean, who could forget those red pants, right? Those crazy red pants of hers. I mean, those are pretty iconic, I would say. Her team, not so much. Now, this is the generation where Talonflame was still an absolute monster, and Chandelure is pretty good too. Torkoal, of course, could set up the sun for us if it had the proper ability. Pyro's not that great, but for a 4-mon squad, this really isn't that bad of a team, I would say. Talonflame was just everywhere in this generation just because of Gale Wings. So, I mean, I can't really put her too awfully low just because of that. And she has a pretty iconic look, I would say. Let's put her in the okay tier for now. I may shift her up to I, but I think this is okay. Drasna is next, and Drasna is pretty interesting. I like her design. I like the dragon teeth necklace around her neck and the earrings and stuff. Like, these are really cool. She has a really unique design, so definitely can't hate on her design. As far as her team goes, Dragalge's pretty bad, even though I wish it was better. Altaria with its Mega is very good. Altaria without its Mega, not so much. Druddigon, not so good. Noivern is decent, I would say. It's very fast, which definitely helps out. Druddigon could set rocks, things like that. So, I mean, it's not an awful team, I guess, but it's just not the best. And obviously, it would have 2 more slots filled in, but I don't think it's the best team in the world. Let's go ahead and put her in the tier. I don't think she's quite to Nah status just because, like, she does have a unique design that's pretty cool. But, yeah, besides that, her team's really not that great, so I can't really put her much higher. Next is Diantha, and I'm not even going to worry about her team. I'm just going to put her in Nah because she is the most forgettable champion that has ever existed. Like, you ask basically anybody, whether they've played X and Y or not, and you just say, hey, can you name the champion from this game? Just give me her name. And most people wouldn't even be able to give you her name because she's just not a good character. She's forgettable. Her team isn't particularly crazy. Yes, she uses Mega Gardevoir, but I don't know. And maybe that's just part of X and Y being kind of forgettable in general. At least to me, they were. Maybe it's part of that. But overall, I really think that her character itself is just not great. And I wish that she was more memorable because I feel like she had potential. But overall, not a great character. Next is Olivia, and Olivia has a pretty unique battle start animation.
You got this, Travis. Make him wait for it. Boom.
And this kind of led her to becoming a little bit more well-known than what I feel like she should have been. I still think she's a cool design, though. Don't get me wrong. I think she's a pretty cool character. She's got Gigalith, which is good. That helps her to set up Sand to help with Probopass and Cradilly's bulk. So I appreciate that. We've got Armaldo as kind of a sweeper. This Lycanroc form is pretty bad, I would say. Golem's pretty bad, too. Carbink could be decent as far as being a wall. And Relicanth's pretty bad too. Her meme culture is pretty good, I would say, but her team is pretty bad. So I think the meme culture is going to end up outweighing it. So she's going to go above. Let's put her in okay for now. And we may shift her up later, but I think okay is pretty good. Acerola is next, and she's a pretty cool character, I have to say. The gym, well, I guess Kahuna site or whatever you even call it, I don't even remember, is the shopping mall, right? Which was pretty interesting, I thought, and that's where you meet the Mimikyu. So then we look at her team, and she uses 6 Pokemon, which is good. You know, she's got 5 here and then switches 1 out for Bayonet here. Sableye is good. I think Sableye would be able to set up Trick Room, which would definitely help the Delmise and the Palossand out. Palossand can be decently bulky if it sets up stockpiles, and it has Shore Up, which is also very good. Delmise is a sleeper threat. Honestly, this thing is strong, and it basically has 3 stabs, which is very nice. Stab, same type attack bonus. It has 3 of them because Steelworker gives it 1 with Steel, which is pretty cool. Drifblim could be an Unburden user. It just depends on what you want to run it as. I think it could be an interesting mon. And then Frostlass sets up hazards and that sort of thing. So the team isn't so bad necessarily. I'm not going to say that it's Chantal levels because Chantal is a way better ghost trainer, I would say. So the shopping mall was pretty iconic, I do have to say. I really liked all of that. And I think that she's pretty creepy and cool and memorable, I would say. So I'm going to put her in the I tier. Yeah, I think she's definitely I. Kahili is next, and she's a pretty cool character, I would say. She plays golf, which is pretty cool, and she's got an interesting design, I would say. It definitely fits that of a golf player, which I like. I play golf, so I can get behind that. As far as her team goes, also not too shabby. Now, Oricorio is really bad. They're all really bad, so I'm just gonna write that one off there. But Skarmory, very good, especially in this upcoming generation. Crobat is pretty dang good. Mandibu's good. Braviary, Hawlucha. Those are all good mons. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. There we go. And so I guess we got to pick up Toucannon. Toucannon's not that great. I would say it's not super great. Who knows? I mean, I've used it to sweep a couple of opponents before, and Beak Blast can definitely catch some people off guard, which is cool. but overall Toucannon's not great, but the rest of her team actually looks pretty good. So I don't hate it. I don't hate it. For a pure flying team, it's actually not too bad. And I know we've got Scylla up here, but I think we're gonna put her in the I tier as well. I think she's got a iconic design, which is good. I think she's got a decent team, so I think she deserves it. Next up is Lana. Now, Lana, I think, is more memorable for her trial than she necessarily was for her like character, I guess. Seeing the Wishy-Washy come flying out of the water in original Sun and Moon was pretty epic, I would say. And then of course we have Araquanid, the totem Araquanid in Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon, which was pretty cool. So I mean, that's pretty cool. As far as her team goes, you know, we've got Cloyster, which is one of the most used mons right now. We've got Araquanid, which is very good at setting up the sticky webs and that sort of thing. Lantern is a kind of a sleeper threat, I would say. It's a decent wall. So, I mean, she's got some decent stuff she's working with, and her trial was okay. Obviously, her team isn't really like fleshed out all that much, which is kind of tough for her. And you don't really see her all that much outside of her trial. So we'll put her in the tier. So yeah, I think that's about as good as we need to go. Hapu would be next, and Hapu is a character that I don't think you can really easily forget. I mean, this design's pretty iconic, I would say. I think a lot of people really liked her character, at least in general. I think people really liked her character, and she's got a pretty good team, I would say. Now, Alolan Dougie is pretty bad, but Gastro Crocodile Flygon Mudsdale is not too shabby. She picks up a Golurk in place of the Alolan Dougie, which I guess could be slightly better, but it's just so slow that I wouldn't say that it's necessarily a better rock setter. I would use Stealth Rocks on the Alolan Dougie over the Golurk. But that's just me. But the rest of her team is pretty flames, I would say. For a ground type team, it's pretty flames. I like it. She has a very memorable design. She's going in I tier. That's just it. Mallow is up next, and I think she's a pretty interesting character. I think that she's pretty memorable as a trial captain, so that's good. That's going for her. You don't really see her much outside of her trial, which is unfortunate. But yeah, she's a cool character. She's got a Shiinotic, which is pretty bad. We've got Sceptile, which is good with its Mega especially. We've got a Talonflame, very strong. Trevenant can be strong. I think Trevenant's pretty cool. I like them on anyway. We've got the Thick Onion Serena Lurantis, can be interesting with Contrary. And we've got Toucannon, again, not great. And Comfey. Now, Comfey is kind of a sleeper threat, honestly. I like Comfey. I think it's pretty awesome with Triage, which gives priority to things like Draining Kiss. So yeah, that's a pretty cool mon, I would say. So her team's not too bad. She's pretty memorable. I'm not going to say she's like the most memorable character in the world, though. So we'll put her in the okay tier. Mina is up next, and I think she's an interesting character, right? So she showed up in Sun and Moon, didn't really do anything, then became a trial captain in Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon, still didn't really do a whole lot. And she also made an appearance in Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee, which was pretty interesting, and you could battle her there. Now, this obviously isn't the team that she used in Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee, and that team isn't actually on here, which is unfortunate. But we can go ahead and look at this team right here. So we've got Rubombi, which could set up webs, which is pretty cool. Wigglytuff, you could send in to die. Shiinotic, you could also send in to die. Granbull would be your only shot at a sweeper, which it does get quite a bit of good coverage, so that's not too bad. And then Klefki could, you know, like set up screens or paralyze things. That's about as good as Klefki's gonna do. So I mean, you've got two support mons and then a sweeper and then fodder. So I mean, it's not that great of a team, I have to say. And it is nice that they carried her over to Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee, but do I think it was enough? Not really. I'm gonna put her in the tier. All right, before we go any farther, these guys are bothering me. No, and no. All of you are terrible. Like you, and even these, I know that these are important characters in X and Y. I couldn't tell you any of their names, and I couldn't tell you any of the Pokemon they use. I couldn't tell you anything about them. They're bad characters in a pretty bad game. No, they're going right there. And these four don't do anything. They don't do anything for the story. They're just there for those little fun little battles that you do in the little cafe or whatever it is. No, they're not going any higher on this list. They're going in Why Do I Remember You? And they're going to stay there forever. Bianca is next. And I know Bianca is a very popular character. At least I definitely remember her. I think she was a great character in the Black and White games. And she's packing some power, I would have to say. Now, obviously, I don't know if you remember her design, but she's she's wanting to study Pokemon, right? And she's wanting to become stronger and that sort of thing. But I think that like her team is very different because her team is very strong, right? And she comes across as like not super confident in everything, but then her team is like ridiculously strong. So I don't know, but she's got Nidoqueen, which is strong. Bisharp, insanely good. We've got, let's see, Serperior. That thing's a powerhouse. Haxorus. Stoutland and Sand is a problem, I would say. Mineshow, Chandelure. I mean, she's got some pretty awesome threats, I would say. She does carry the monkeys, which are really bad. But I mean, she's got some good threats on her team. Reuniclus, very good. Toxicroak is good. She's got some good mons. She's got some heat, I would say. I really like her teams. I think she's got some really cool potential as far as all that goes. I'm putting her in I tier. I don't think she's quite to dang, but I mean, she's right there, I would say. She's like right on the line between the two. Shauna is next, and Shauna I think is one of the more forgettable rivals in this generation. You know, if you don't agree with me, I'm sorry, but I think she's one of the more forgettable ones. But that doesn't mean that she isn't packing some power. Where she's tied to the playable character, she picks up Greninja, which makes her an incredibly strong threat. Protean Greninja is insanely strong, and it can make a huge difference in battle. Chestnut isn't the best thing in the world, but it's also not the worst. It's got a really nice defense stat, and especially if this thing gets body press going into this generation, that could be a problem. We've got Delphox, which could be an interesting special sweeper, so that's pretty cool. Goodra is very good, actually. I think Goodra is way better than what it gets credit for. It's very bulky. It gets a ton of different coverage. And Sylveon is OU. That's a very strong mon. It does several things really well. It's a great wish passer. And with Goodra, I think it actually forms a really nice core. So decent team, I would say. You've got Greninja. If you've got Greninja, though, honestly, I think she has to go dang. Like, Greninja is just so strong. Ash Greninja or Protean Greninja, they're both ridiculously strong. You have to go in dang tier. All right, Green is next, and Green is a bit of an interesting character, right? So we meet Green in Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee, and what does she do? She throws Pokeballs at you, right? Which is weird. She also knows where Mewtwo is. Weird, seeing how it's just rumors to everybody else. She has both of the Mega Stones to Mewtwo. Also interesting. You have to imagine that those are pretty rare. Yeah, so she's connected to Mewtwo pretty hard. And it's honestly my theory that she is a clone of Mr. Fuji's daughter, who worked on the Mewtwo project. He also worked on it with the gym leader of Cinnabar Island, which is pretty cool. So yeah, she's a clone, which is weird. And so I'm gonna put her in the nah tier. Yeah, we're gonna put her in the nah tier. What are you doing? Get in the no, you guys. No. Zinnia is our next one, and she's an interesting character for sure, right? She has a weird arc throughout ORAS, and she's definitely memorable if you played through the Delta episode. And her team isn't too bad. There's Goodra again. We've got Mega Salamence. Tyrantrum is an interesting one to see. Strongjaw boosted hits from Tyrantrum are actually very strong. Noivern being super fast. Mega Altaria, also something viable. Besides that, it's just kind of death fodder. But yeah, the team's pretty solid, and I think that she's decently memorable, I would say, from Delta episode. At least I remember it, and I haven't played it in a very long time. So I'm actually going to put her in the I tier, and I think that's a pretty solid placement. Next are Cheryl and Marley, and I'm going to put them together actually because they're both the characters that you have to escort through. This is through the Eterna Forest, is that what it's called? And then Route 224 leading to Shaman. So they engage in double battles with you, and then they keep your team healthy and that sort of thing. I really wasn't that much of a fan of those aspects of the game, and you know, if you were, then that's great. But for me, I didn't think that they were necessarily memorable enough of characters. I just thought they were really annoying at the time. Maybe not them specifically as characters, but just that mechanic of having to go through that forest and doing double battles and that sort of thing. It just felt like it made it take a lot longer than it needed to. So I'm going to put them in the nah tier, unfortunately. If you liked it, that's great. And obviously you can fill out one of these and put them higher. But I just don't think that they really need to go all that much higher. All right, next let's go to some admins here. And we've got Shelly with Team Aqua. Now, Shelly has had two different appearances throughout the games. Originally, she had this really long red hair, which is what I really remembered. And then they changed her hair to the black hair when she moved over to this game, which I don't hate. I don't hate the design change necessarily, but it definitely made it seem like a completely different character. So that disconnect isn't that great, which kind of makes it tough. I mean, they also did the same thing to Archie. Archie looked completely different when it came to Alpha Sapphire, and then they moved. Then when they did the DLC, or not the DLC, but the post game in Ultra Sun and Moon with the Rainbow Rocket, and then he looked back like his original design. That made no sense to me. Why go through the trouble of making a sprite that looked completely different, which I liked new Archie. I thought that new Archie's design was pretty cool, but why go back and change it to the original design when you already had a sprite there? I don't know. I didn't understand that. Anyway, as far as her team goes, Sharpedo, Mega Sharpedo is very strong. We've got a Mighty Anna as well. We have a Grimer that I guess we could say turns into a Muck, but besides that, that's all she's ever had, which is kind of rough. She hasn't really had very many Pokemon, but I think she has a strong design. But this kind of identity crisis that was created here, I think hurts her as a character. It just kind of makes it difficult to, you know, you think of one or the other typically, but it creates this weird duality that I don't think is really great for making an iconic character. So I'm gonna have to put her in the nah tier. Next, let's get to some Team Galactic admins, and for some reason Saturn didn't make it onto this list. Like, I've checked down here and just they forgot Saturn somehow. I don't really know how that happened. I don't know. But anyway, Mars is my favorite design as far as the three of them go. I don't like Saturn or Jupiter's hair. I just think it's weird. But Mars, I'm okay with it. I think her design is pretty cool. So she's a cool character. She's got Purugly, which is eh. So let's say she's got a Crobat, so let's say she evolves that, and then she's got a Bronzong. So, you know, it's kind of interesting. She also holds the Pokeball upside down, which is kind of cool. That's something definitely unique. But yeah, as far as her team goes, Purugly isn't great. Crobat's pretty good, Bronzong's pretty good, but we've seen them before. I don't know. She also apparently in different versions, she has a different name. I think she's named after a different planet, which is kind of weird. I think Mars obviously fits her because of the red hair, but I don't know. Her team isn't super great, but I think she's a cool design. So I think she's strong enough to go in the tier. I like her here. I think this is okay. All right, Jupiter is next, and I don't hate Jupiter's design. I really don't think that she's like the worst designed in the world. I do think that this like leg thing would be very uncomfortable. This just doesn't, because it doesn't look like it's made out of like a sweatband. It looks like it's made out of like hard plastic or something like that. So I feel like that would end up cutting off circulation if it's staying there on her leg. Is that just me? I don't know. I feel like that seems very uncomfortable. And this boot, it just comes up to a really awkward place. Like, I don't know. It being like right above her knee like that just seems really awkward to wear. I don't know. That's just me, but I think that just looks weird. She does have a Skuntank, which is good. I think Skuntank is decent. It's got some good coverage. We've got a Bronzong and then a Crobat. So, I mean, she's got okay mons, I would say. You know, Skuntank, I like Skuntank. I think it's underrated for sure. But as far as like being super powerful, as far as having a super strong design, I don't think she's all that great. I think she still goes in the tier just because she does come from such an iconic game. And, you know, she really is iconic, but she's just not my favorite character. I think Mars is, you know what? I'm moving Mars. I like Mars better than Jupiter. I think she's going to go up there, and then we'll put Jupiter in the tier. I think that's pretty good. I don't think it's bad because she really is a good character. I don't hate her at all because she really does play a big part in those games, and those are very iconic, very good games. So I can't put her in the nah tier. I couldn't put anybody from Gen 4 in the nah tier. All right, Lily is next, and I think Lily was a really cool character. I think she's very iconic, especially because of the get in the bag meme. Oh my gosh, that was such a good meme. I thought that was hilarious. I really enjoyed her arc as far as that goes. Now, when she goes at the very end and like does her ponytail thing and says that she's like a changed person and all that, I thought that was kind of lame. But I mean, she carries around a Cosmog the entire game, which ends up being a Solgaleo or a Lunala. That's kind of important. You know, you tend to remember those things. And so while she never really wields them in battle, she's still very much connected to them. And so for that, I think she's very important. So we can't put her in too low of a tier, I would say. I think I'm going to put her in the I tier. Go over there. I think I'm going to put her in the I tier. I think she's I think she's a good character. I think she's pretty memorable, I would say, especially for getting the bag. So I like her in this tier. I think she's okay. Next up is Lusamine, and Lusamine's an interesting character and the only one that I put two forms of on here. So let's talk original form, right? Let's talk normal Lusamine, because that's what's important here, right? She is an interesting character. She's obviously pretty evil and just not a good person at all, but she's got a decent team. And so I think we have to look at that. She's got Clefable, which has 50% usage in OU right now, which is very strong. Beware is a very good mon in this current generation. We've got Mega Lopunny, could be insane. Lilligant, Quiver Dance Setter, Milotic, very bulky water type. Her team's pretty good. I have to say her team's pretty good, and she's a decently memorable character. So we're going to put her in the I tier, and the only reason I'm putting her in the I tier, because we all know where Jellyfish Lusamine has to go, because this is her ultimate form. That's going in the dang tier. It has to. Next is going to be our mom from Sun and Moon, and I know that I normally, like, none of the other moms are actually on this list, but this one is, and I thought I would include it, right? She just kind of lets random people barge into the house, like, all the time. So, like, you know, there are several times when you're out on the balcony with your mom and you walk back in there and the professor's just in your living room. And I'm thinking, like, I know that it's a pretty close-knit community, but do you not, like, close your doors? Or do you have something going on with Professor Kukui that we need to know about? And if so, I think she may have something to say about it. I don't know. I don't think that that's the best policy to have, especially in a Pokemon world, just leaving your door open. So we're going to put her in the not tier because she doesn't seem to be thinking very clearly. And on top of that, we're going to go with Kukui's wife, which I think she's a fantastic character. I think that she is very helpful to you. I think she's iconic. I think she's a really awesome design. I love the hairstyle. Really cool. I think she's I think she's a good character, and I think she's better than our mom. I'll say it. I think she's better than our mom. All right, back to admins here, and we've got Plumeria. Now, Plumeria, I think, has a very unique design in Team Skull. Now, I do think that Team Skull is one of the worst evil teams we've ever seen. Team Yell is, Team Yell is Team Yell, I guess. Not even evil, they just cheer loudly, I guess. but she's pretty cool, I have to say. She's a standout character, and she's got some pretty cool stuff that she's packing. Gengar, very strong. Alolan Muck, very strong. I love it. Crobat, Toxapex, Salazzle, Lurantis. I mean, this is a good team. These are good mons. I like it. I think she's going in the dank tier. I really didn't research her all that much before I got onto this. Her team is way better than I thought it was. So she's going in the dank tier. Next is Wick, and I think Wick was actually a pretty cool character. I'm not gonna lie. I think she was great. You know, she stepped in for helping Lily out when her mom just kind of decided to go nuts and become a jellyfish. So I think she's a cool character. She doesn't have any Pokemon or anything, but I think she's a neat character. Where do I want to even put her? I think she's at least okay. She's gonna be alright. I think she's a good character. I really like her, so I'm gonna put her in the alright tier. We're gonna do Juniper next, and I think Juniper is actually a pretty cool professor. She's the first female professor to ever appear in a Pokemon game, which I think is pretty iconic, I would say. I think it makes her pretty memorable, especially in the Black and White series, which were very good games. I think she's a good character. I really like her. She gives you your starters, which is pretty par for the course, but she's just a helpful character, obviously, as a professor, and she's more helpful than other professors have been in the past, I would say. So I'm going to put her in the I tier too. I think she's great. I don't think I can put her in the dang tier just because she doesn't have like this ridiculously strong team, and that's part of the criteria for this list. But I think she's at least I think she's an iconic character. I think she does a good job at what she does. Good character, definitely I. All right, next is going to be Sonia, and Sonia I think was a very popular character when people played through this. I think a lot of people really liked her character, and it's easy to see why, right? I think she's pretty iconic, and she is the very first character to become a Pokemon professor during the course of a game, which I think is also very iconic. So she's pretty iconic, I would say. Now, the story in Sword Shield obviously wasn't super great, but it is fresh on everybody's minds. Just because of that, I'm trying to think of these equally here. I'm going to put her in the okay tier. She doesn't have any Pokemon that she uses because she's a professor, but I think she's got a lot of popularity, and I think it is deserved. But ultimately, I don't think she really does a ton for the story, really. It's just kind of, you know, us cheering her on from the sidelines. Last one we have on this list is going to be Professor Magnolia, and I'm just going to be honest with you, I couldn't remember her name until I looked her up, so that's not helpful. Obviously I know who she is. She's from the most recent game, Sword and Shield, but she just kind of pops in and out randomly throughout the games, and it didn't really feel like there was a rhyme or reason about it. And that may have to do with her age. Like, they're trying to figure out ways to put her into the story, but she obviously can't get around as well as what she used to. So I don't know. I don't think she's necessarily a bad character, but I don't think that she made enough of an appearance in the games to really make a mark. So we'll put her in the tier just because, you know, like, obviously she does some pretty cool things. She gives you your Dynamax band, for crying out loud, which is cool. But she really doesn't do a whole lot besides that, except just show up randomly and provide a little bit of dialogue. So yeah, I'm going to put her right here. And now we're going to move on to those who are not on this list. We'll place those and we'll wrap it up. All right, next up is going to be Nessa. Now, Nessa is obviously a pretty iconic character. A lot of people just like the way that she looks, which is fair. I see you, I get you. But her team is also pretty good. I mean, Golisopod is okay. It's kind of slow. Pelipper sets up Rain for Barraskewda, which is great, and for Dreadnought. And Gmax Dreadnought sets up your rocks for you, which is pretty good. Toxapex, incredibly bulky. Quagsire, very bulky as well. The team looks good. The team looks pretty good for a mono water team. And I know that everybody loves her. So you know what? Just for the fans, she'll be in the dang tier. Alistair is next, and now obviously I didn't play versus Alistair in my playthrough because I played Sword, so she kind of has less importance to me as a gym leader, which is kind of an interesting dynamic, right? We're not used to seeing different gym leaders over the different games. And so I have less of a connection to her than I would, which kind of sucks, but I mean, it is what it is. So she's got a Mimikyu, which is obviously strong. We've got Gengar, we've got Cursula, Chandelure, Poltegeist, Runerigus. I mean, solid ghost team. I mean, these ghost teams are pretty flames, and it has a lot to do with ghost typing being as strong as it is. That helps a lot, but I mean, this also is just a strong team. I mean, you've got Shell Smash Poltegeist, you've got a strong Cursula, you've got like Scarf Chandelure, or even Scarf Gengar, you've got Hazards with Runerigus. The team just works, man. It's a good team. I mean, the team is good, but as far as like the character goes, I don't know the character well enough to really place her based on that. So based on the team alone, I'm gonna put her in the I tier. If I had an appreciation for her character, I'd put her higher possibly, but I think I is still pretty good. B is up next, and B will kick your butt. I mean, look at this. I mean, she is strong as heck, and she will absolutely mess you up if you were to try anything. She's insane. Anyway, she's got a really cool team. She's got Hitmontop, which gives Intimidate, obviously. Pangoro is actually pretty strong in this game. We've got Hawlucha, super strong. Graplocked, it's not so strong, but it's a fantastic mon. Surfetched, 135 attack. It's no joke. Gmax Machamp, which, whatever. And Phalanx, I love Phalanx. I think it's such a fun mon to use. I hope it gets a Gigantamax form in the future, because that would be really cool. But yeah, I mean, not a bad team at all. I mean, she's definitely got some good hard hitters in there. So I like her. I think that she's going to go in the I tier. So yeah, I think as a character, she's pretty cool. Her team is strong, but it's not overpowered or anything. So I think it's pretty fair. Next up is Opal, and we all know where Opal is going. All right, next up is Melanie, and I'm just gonna like, she's thick, but like she's alright, right? Like her character is pretty cool. Now, one thing I didn't realize is that her son is Gordy. I did not know that because she doesn't look that old. I don't know, like I would have thought that he looks older than her, honestly. And I'm not really sure why that is, but she just looks younger than him. I don't know, but I think that she's a good character. I think she has a great design. She's got Ice Cube, which of course is always a fun mon to use. Galarian Darmanitan, that's an uber. She's got Mr. Rhyme, the best boy in the world. Gmax Lapras with screens. Yeah, that's strong. I mean, she's got some good mons. Ice types, there were some good ice types in this generation. And of course, with Heavy Duty Boots helping them out as well, she's got a good team. I like her team for sure. So as a character, as a design, I think she's great. As a team, I think it's also pretty good. So I would say her design is carrying a lot more of this decision, but she's going in the dang tier. All right, Marnie is going to round out our Galar region, and I think she was a pretty cool character. Morpeko was a really cool mon to feature using her, because Morpeko can actually be pretty strong if it uses the right moves on you. So that's pretty cool. She also has a Grimmsnarl, which Grimmsnarl is also very strong. It's a great setter of screens. It can set up bulk ups. It can do a lot of different things. Scrafty, Intimidate, or Moxie, or even Shedskin with Rest is a thing that you can do. Toxicroak, strong. Liepard is a great user of Prankster as well. So she's got two Prankster users, which could be strong. I mean, it can definitely pull off some shenanigans, and I think it's a cool team. I think she's a really iconic character in the series. I think she's one of the stronger characters. I'm going to put her in the I tier. Okay, so I'm going to put Nurse Joy and Officer Jenny together, right? And the reason I'm doing this is because they're both going in the same tier, and they're both going in the nah tier. Now, before this is a tough one, right? Because obviously they are fan favorite characters, but how many of them are there, right? There are at least one Nurse Joy for every city, and there is at least one Officer Jenny in every city, and there's at least two in Vermilion City that we know of. You can tell by their hats. All of them wear different hats based on the city that they're from. But there's a million of them. meaning that they are either all sisters, unlikely, or they've all been cloned, which I don't know what it is about this series and cloning, but y'all need to stop it. Like, it's real weird. It's real weird, and I don't want to be a part of it. You're going in the nah tier. That's it. We're done. And last but certainly not least, we have Ash's mom. And as they all say, and I'm sure you've heard it before, if it's good enough for Professor Oak, it's good enough for me. Dang tier. And that's it. That's our list. So I hope that you guys have enjoyed this Pokemon waifu tier list. I know it isn't the normal Pokemon waifu tier list that you think of, but I'm always the one to overanalyze literally everything. So yeah, this is just me being par for the course and being way more nerdy than what I should, but it's okay. So I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I hope that it, I don't know, made you have a better day. Now, I mentioned this at the beginning of the video, but do not forget about our live stream on Wednesday at 6 p.m. We are going to be streaming the Isle of Armor DLC, so make sure that you come out and support that stream. It is going to be an awesome time as we find out what new things this game has in store. So I hope to see you all there. Make sure to like and subscribe if you are new, and I will see you all on Wednesday. Bye-bye.